XS Wireless Digital is the perfect wireless audio solution for content creators and filmmakers. Thanks to a 2.4 GHz transmission, XS Wireless Digital is a truly plug-and-play system that allows you to upgrade your in-camera audio with one-button operation. With a variety of configurations to choose from, this entry point into the world of wireless will improve your workflow and will expand the possibilities of how you capture audio for your video. For more information, visit sennheiser.com/xswd.
Hi, Carl here for ProAV TV. Welcome to ProAV Live and our weekly live stream Q&A session. Last one of these before Christmas, so happy Christmas, everyone. So to kick this off, I want to explain just a little bit while people are tuning in that we have entirely changed up our technical back end of these streams. We've moved from one TriCaster to a different TriCaster. We've completely rebuilt the project. Everything is new from a technical point of view behind the scenes. And so if you see anything that is out of the ordinary, anything that looks wrong, audio levels, video transitions, anything like that, which you spot and go, hang on, it's not normally like that, that doesn't look right, please do let us know, because you've been so helpful before in the past of letting us know when things haven't gone the way that we thought they would in the chat, and we can normally fix them on the fly. So if you spot anything that's weird, please do let us know. That technical reason, by the way, to give you a bit of background on that, we were using the TriCaster Mini 4K before, and since then we have bought in the TriCaster 2 Elite, so the flagship TriCaster unit, the newest, latest, greatest, biggest, bestest TriCaster out there to use in our showroom to demo the TriCaster system, but also use it for our own streams. And this is going to let us do a whole bunch of exciting stuff. But what we've built here is literally just the exact same thing as we were doing with the Mini 4K. But moving forward into 2021, it is going to let us do some really cool things and take these streams to the next level. So firstly, if anyone is interested in looking at TriCaster 2 Elite, get in touch. We can do a demo for you on this one that we're using right here. And secondly, we are still going to be doing demos on the Mini 4K. We've still got that one as well. So don't you worry if you were looking at a TriCaster 4K. For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, TriCaster is a streaming system and live vision mixing broadcast solution, which is made by a company called NewTek. They're pretty much the main NDI vision mixer on the market. NDI is a platform for taking video and audio over a IP network. And so that is the way that we are creating these streams, which you're watching now. If there's interest in there, I will do a whole stream going into a bit more detail on that. So the way that these, if you haven't watched one of these weekly updates so far, basically I've got nothing to talk about. I have not prepared anything here. So please do leave anything that you would like me to talk about or any questions that you may have in the comment section. It's been quite a quiet week this last week. It always is in December. In the run up to Christmas, the industry always slows down a little bit. So if this one's a short one, it's a short one. This is why we've moved over from one TriCaster to another TriCaster with this session, so that we've got a quieter stream to test it on. So, you know, this might be a full hour if lots of questions come in. This might be 20 minutes if no questions come in. Who knows? But leave questions that you have and anything you would like me to talk about in the chat as we go through. Both the YouTube comments and the YouTube live chat and the Facebook comments. I can see all of those as we go. So the only real major piece of news I think that's happened this week is from Aperture, who have... I think it was only yesterday actually, made a huge bunch of announcements on their live stream. This is just their website. These products are so new that we haven't even managed to get them on our website yet. They released this 600D, which we've been selling. We've now got this in stock. We've been waiting for this for about a year. This is Aperture's biggest version of their light. It is so unbelievably bright. We've got one here in the showroom. It's so bright that you can't really even look at it when it's on 100% brightness. You will damage your eyes. Like, it is so bright. So for anyone who needs a really powerful LED fixture, this is the one to go for from Aperture. And we have got these in stock. So if you need one quickly, we can help you there. What their announcements were, I'm going to find their announcements in the Amran lineup. Yes, here we go. So this is what they announced yesterday, which are their Amaran lineup, sort of similar to their normal Aperture lineup and the Lightstorm ones, the LS lights, where we've had the 120D and the 300D for a long time now, and they are Bowens mount fixtures. These ones are their sort of affordable versions of those lights, which I think are going to be really, really popular. I haven't had much time to look at because I didn't catch the live stream when it went out live yesterday. I was too busy with other things, unfortunately, and I haven't had time to go back and watch it again to see all the details. But if anyone did, let me know what you think of them so far in the chat as we go through, because if these are good, these are going to be so popular. They look like they're about a third of the price of their normal Aperture lights, the 120D and the 300D. And those lights by themselves are so popular with all different kinds of users. I don't know what the compromises are to get that cost down. There will be some. These are two existing lineups that are living alongside each other. These will have some features missing, I am sure of it. I think the main one is the build quality, but I don't know if there's any features being stripped out as well, because as I said, I haven't had time to chat what Ted was talking about. Specifications. We can probably full specifications will be available on release. That doesn't help me. Okay, the only question I've had come in so far is saying, "Hi Carl, how are you?" I'm fine, thank you very much. It's going to be a very short stream if that's the only question that we get. But I am very well, and us all here at ProAV are as well. We're all very much looking forward to Christmas, even if Christmas is going to be a very strange one. We're also massively looking forward to 2021 being a slightly better year for the industry than 2020 has been. Well, a year for the whole world than 2020 has been, I suppose. Although from a sales point of view, 2020 has been all right because all of our customers had to transition over to doing different styles of work, like streaming and everything like that. For the most part, most of our customers' work took a massive hit in the middle of lockdown and all the COVID pandemic, of course. And so, moving forward to 2021, we are very much looking forward to our customers coming back with a little bit more resumed vigor as work starts to trickle back in for them, because happy customers is a happy company for us. Okay, some great questions coming in. Fantastic. iFilm Flops, what a name. For low light narrative live action and for video autofocus, which do you like better, the C70 or the FX6? Okay, iFilm Flops, fantastic name. So low light narrative live action and for video autofocus. Okay, I'm going to have to break those down into pieces. For low light, the C70 is a very capable camera, but it's what I would call a normal camera for low light, nothing extraordinary. The FX6 in comparison is, I think, the best camera on the market right now for professional video low light work. If you need to shoot at very high ISOs, and I'm talking about extreme high ISOs, 50,000 ISO to 400,000 ISO, I personally feel that the FX6 is going to be the tool that gets that job done the best. The A7S Mark III is also a very strong contender. If you want to go for one which has more built-in noise reduction, that's the one for you. If you're debating between the two of them, we have a whole video series which goes over that in detail on the YouTube channel. So for low light, the FX6. For narrative is an interesting one, because a lot of narrative depends on the ins and outs of what people prefer about the image. And we need to get both cameras in the wild, really, and in the hands of actual DOPs for that. But because on the surface, the FX6 is a more capable camera. It's a more traditional form factor. It's got full-size XLRs. It's got more features than the C70, with more codecs available. But the real secret for the winner for the C70 is its sensor, because its sensor is the same as the C300 Mark III. And the C300 Mark III sensor has been getting really good reception in the industry. I've seen tests out there basically saying that it is the best camera underneath the Arri Alexa in terms of dynamic range on the market, which is remarkably good. And if the C70's performance is the same, which from our testing so far does seem to be, that is going to be a fantastic looking camera. And so I would imagine I can picture DOPs preferring the look from the C70 from the FX6. Now, that's pure speculation on my part. The FX6 does have a lovely image after all. It's not like there's anything wrong with the FX6. But that could have a bearing on which one is used more for narrative. The other thing that might have a bearing on that is what the main camera looks like, because the FX6 has a better main sort of camera if it's the B camera with the Venice, but the look is a little bit different between the two. The C70 has a C300 Mark III and then the C500 Mark II, both of which will look quite similar to the C70. So it's an interesting trade-off there from a larger narrative point of view. For video autofocus, I would love to do a more in-depth comparison between the two cameras on that, because the nitty-gritty of which one is a better technically autofocus system, in tracking which one messes up more often than the other, it's going to be very close. I do think the Sony might have the edge there now, but I haven't tested the C70 enough to know if Canon have made any advancements there. I know the R5 is very, very impressive. Where Canon definitely are taking the lead, though, over Sony with the FX6 is the way that the autofocus system is controlled, because the touchscreen control on the C70 is far better and quicker to use than the FX6. But I do think the FX6 is just one firmware away from getting that right. I would love to see Sony come in and redesign some of the way that camera is operated. So that doesn't really answer your question at all, iFilm Flops. But that's some of my thinking between the two of them. Okay, PhotoMind. Welcome back. I recognize your username. Considering swapping out my C500 Mark II for one or two FX6s. Smaller, lighter, good ISO, still full frame, cheaper. But how sick would I be of the Sony menus? It's impossible for me to answer. I personally much prefer the menu system that Canon have got going on the C300 Mark II and the C500 Mark II over the one in the FX6 and the FX9. That being said, Sony have made a lot of advancements from the FS7 days. So if you were used to using the FS7 at all, they have made a difference there. Smaller, lighter, yeah, it's hard to argue with that. Good ISO. Interestingly, on that one, if you're using just normal high ISOs like 6400, for example, I would reckon the C500 Mark II would perform much better. It's only when you push the FX6 right up to even higher ISOs, the 25 to 100,000 ISO levels, that the FX6 really starts to shine and the C500 Mark II will fall apart. As to how much the Sony menus are going to bother you, it's really hard to know. If you use autofocus a lot, if you use more than just autofocus face tracking, if you're touching the screen to select objects and the object tracking, I think you are going to get annoyed with the way the FX6 operates if you're coming from a C500 Mark II. The best thing to do is just to try one out. I don't know where you're based, PhotoMind, but if you're in the UK, you're more than welcome to get in touch. We can send you an FX6 for you to try out and see what you think of it. Okay, Andy, how do ProAV do many sales in January? Each new year does tend to start a little bit slowly. Both December and January tend to be quieter dip years in terms of sales. Of course, the whole industry, not just us. A lot of that this year is going to depend on what's happening with the COVID pandemic, because that has just chucked all the regular schedule and ups and downs of a year out of the window. We do, though, see lots more inquiries in January. We see lots more people wanting advice. We have lots more people thinking, okay, now, it's the New Year's resolution thing. It's, I want to change what I'm doing, the way that I'm doing it. What should I do? And we get lots more people on more broader topics. So things like streams will be great for that. Actually, now we're doing these, this will be a really good way to help customers with that. Because then they're deciding, okay, in a couple of months' time, once I've got enough money put to one side and work starts coming back in, what should I invest in? We get lots more of those inquiries. So if anyone is out there thinking that, just get in touch. We have a whole sales team that can absolutely help talking through. Andy is saying, looking for new lights, but wondering whether to hold off because of price drops. Okay, price drops and sales in January. Do you mean sales as in offers rather than just general? Are people buying stuff in January? Sorry, that's how I read that. I don't think we do many sales in January. Most sales tend to be around the New Year's. We don't do the normal like Boxing Day January sales. We've just had Black Friday for that. That being said, though, affordable lights are always coming out. I mean, look at what I started the stream with these aperture lights. These ones are going to be fantastic, affordable options for people. And so these, I don't know when these are coming. I don't think they've actually specified how long. But if you're looking for this kind of lighting, these might be worth holding off for. Okay, Reno. Hi Carl, following the sad but expected announcement of no more Photokina. Yeah, that is sad. What do you think about photo trade shows for near and the far future? Yeah, I mean, it is very sad about Photokina. Photokina was clearly trying to reinvent things a little bit over the last couple of years. And I don't want to say struggling, but they'd gone to every 2 years and things like that. I think part of the problem is manufacturers, especially in the photography world, were moving away from announcing things, and in the video world, a lot of our trade shows are around networking. Because we're more business to business in the video world. Production companies meeting up with rental companies and all the rest of it. That sort of networking side of the industry happens at trade shows a lot. So in the video side of the industry with IBC and NAB and BSC and all these sorts of video trade shows, that happens a lot, and it really keeps the foot flow going and the amount of people attending those and the amount of good people attending those trade shows up. In stills world, people tend to operate much more in lone bubbles, and so that networking side of a show like Photokina, or in the UK we've got the photography show, doesn't tend to be as high. And so a lot of it is about physically trying out the cameras and seeing any new announcements. Now on that, most manufacturers are moving away from announcing new products at trade shows to separate them from the buzz, and because online announcements can be so powerful nowadays. And I think that will go even more that way after 2020, because we've all had to do it that way this year. Look at what Apple have been doing with their live streams, and we've been seeing that throughout our industry as well with Canon and Sony and all the big players. And actually going back to Aperture again, Aperture have been doing it fantastically, where they've been announcing their new products over live stream and getting a good amount of buzz going on around that as well. As the industry moves more towards that method of announcing products rather than at a trade show, the amount of attendees attending a trade show is going to go down. Plus, the trying out new products thing. I mean, obviously with COVID, that hurts that massively, because who wants to touch a camera that 300 other people have touched that exact morning? Sorry, I'm being distracted by what people are saying in the chat. I think in the photo world, because people aren't networking as much. Oh, that's what I was saying. With the trying out equipment, lots more manufacturers and companies like us are having more and more trial options for people to actually borrow equipment themselves. Lots of the major stills manufacturers, so Canon do it, Sony do it, Fuji do it, and Panasonic do it. they all have this sort of try before you buy scheme where you can try out one of their cameras on short-term loan from companies either directly or from companies like Hire Camera. And of course you have traditional dealers like us, which have our own demo stock for people to try out. So there's lots of ways that people can try out equipment without going to an actual trade show. And so for particularly for wide international ones which cater to more than just one country's audience, like Photokina, it relies on having to pull people from all around the world. I think it's always going to struggle. So it is very sad, and I hope they go on to do something else rather than just a traditional event, an in-person event, because of course there's so many other things that they could get into as a team behind Photokina, because it would be very sad to see them leave the industry. Okay, Simon, just a quick note on your new gear. I've not noticed it before, and it could just be my end, but your audio is a little squeaky. It sounds like there's some audio artifacts going on. This is exactly the sort of feedback that I'm after. Thank you so much. It could be all sorts of things. I'll get the team here to look into it, and we'll listen back to this to see if you think it might just be that I was a little bit close to the mic, and so if therefore it's clipping a little bit. By squeaky, do you just mean compressed, like it's not as rich a sound as before? I would also like to replace this microphone because this is just a simple Rode Pod mic. It's nothing fancy at all. Interesting. We will look into that in more detail. If anyone else agrees with that comment or has any more information on what that might sound like, let us know. Mike, when you do camera reviews designed for audio capture as well as video, can you please comment on the audio system as well? Not all of us can run dual audio systems. Okay, so I guess that's just some feedback there from Mike saying that we should pay more attention to the audio side of a camera rather than just the video side of it, and absolutely. What I would say is that most cameras nowadays are really quite good, particularly up at the sort of the video end of the market, like the C70, FX6 end of the market. And we do cover them a little bit. In terms of things like preamps and everything, they are very good nowadays. Down at the, well, to be honest, even down at the mirrorless level and the more affordable mirrorless level, they all tend to be pretty good. You tend to see more problems there with, do they have the right inputs and outputs, a headphone jack, a 3.5mm jack, do they have an attachment to put an XLR box on, things like that. Not all of us can run duo systems, absolutely not. And if you don't want to run a dual system and you've got a mirrorless camera with only a 3.5mm jack, there are so many great products now that don't need XLR. You know, you've got Sennheiser's AVX systems, you've got the new Hollyland Lark, the Rode Wireless Go, Sennheiser's XSWD systems, all of these audio systems which just do not need a XLR jack in anymore. And we use those all the time, particularly for things like trade shows where we have to be very quick and light on our feet. Okay, Video Editor Bloke. Thank you all for the questions, by the way. So many good questions are coming in now. Video Editor Bloke. When you talk about people preferring a camera's look over one another, surely at the end of the day, it all comes down to how the footage is then graded. So why is that so important? It is a very, very good point. The way that people prefer a look is very subjective. And a lot of that comes down to, does that look of the camera fit within the way that they are used to working from a grading perspective? Lots of people shoot in log now. And yes, you can grade, if you know what you're doing, you can grade any camera's log to look like pretty much any other camera's log. You can make any camera look like an Ariel X, or you can make any camera look like an FX6. You can do whatever you want with you've got log footage if you're a talented grader. The vast majority of us are not talented graders. I'd say the vast majority sit in the same sort of level as I sit, where I either use some lookup tables, but I tend to avoid using LUTs, or I can just do a very simple, contrast, saturation, pull, and maybe a little bit of hue versus hue and hue versus sat to just correct things a little bit, but can't really go much beyond that in terms of color grading and in terms of color consistently across a project, because that's a crucial part of color grading, which people like me, people the less experienced with color grading, really struggle with. A lot of that color science bit is how good does it look with just that very simple color grade to it? Do I need to do quite a bit to this footage to make it look good, or do I need to barely do anything to this footage to make it look good? So that's what I see people liking in terms of look. The other part of that is how things look not being log, because of course if you don't shoot in log, you can't change. Well, you can, but shouldn't really. If you want to be doing significant grading, you should be in log or something like that for most of the time. And so lots of people do shoot in what you see is what you get profiles. So they don't want to spend too much time in grading. They want things to look good straight out of the box. For example, this stream, the camera shot that you're watching right now is just the Rec 709 profile straight out of the C300 Mark II in front of me, going into TriCaster and then straight up to YouTube for you. We're not grading it, obviously, because it's live, and so what this looks like is important. So it's a complex thing, and of course it's subjective, and a lot of it will just be down to people's own biases, to be honest with you. But it's a very complex thing with lots going on in terms of why people prefer one look over another. Andy has clarified that he meant in terms of January discounts and sales. I see. Yep. We don't tend to do anything super official, but there is normally a constant rolling batch of streams of promotion, that manufacturers do that isn't really linked to any time of the year. But there's nothing official. In January, there are these deals. Apart from lots of the big manufacturers do winter cashback deals, things like that. So Canon and Sony are both running them at the moment, and those will probably run throughout January as well. But they're all live now. Okay, iPhone flops. Great answer on the C70 versus FX6. Thank you. It's for an indie horror feature film that I'll be shooting. Last feature shot with a Vericam LT, and I'm looking for something lighter with good autofocus. To be honest, I would go for the C70, or if you want to, it depends what glass you're going to use on a feature like that. Well, let me know, iPhone flops. What lenses are you hoping to use on there? Do you have particular ones in mind, or are you going to choose your camera first and then your lenses? Because that could dictate things massively. Okay, Aston Regis, does ProAV offer affiliate links for content creators making review videos? Not right at the moment. It is a project I'm working on, and I've been working on for many years. The back end of our website, to be brutally honest, is not quite up to it right now. We are in the middle of completely redoing some of our back end, boring technical stuff on our website. And once that is done, but it's a long process. Once that is done, hopefully I'll be able to get that up and running, because if we do affiliate links, I want to do it properly, not just something that's hard to get hold of and just doesn't work for the affiliates or the customers or for us. It's just a waste of time if it's like that. If it's done properly, affiliate links are fantastic. It's something that we are very open to, and something I'm very keen to get off the ground. So drop us an email, just email sales@ProAV and ask for me, and we can start a conversation. And as soon as we've got something, I can let you know. Okay, Majid, why is the Panasonic S1h underrated, in my opinion? Okay, so not in my opinion is the Panasonic S1h underrated. You're saying it is underrated, and why is that in my opinion? Especially when a Pro DOP does not use the autofocus. Right, okay. You're completely right. I think the Panasonic S1h is underrated. To be honest, I think most cameras of recent years have been a bit underrated. Since the GH5, Panasonic haven't really had a camera that's come along and just blown the industry away. They've made some very, very good cameras, but nothing that's really set the world alight and the industry alight. But they're fantastic, and the S1h is a very, very good camera. I think the problem is, you say Pro DOPs don't use the autofocus functions, and to be honest, you're probably right. I would also say Pro DOPs normally don't use mirrorless cameras very much like the S1h, and if they do, it's more important that they match whatever their big camera is than it's good on its own merits. And so because of that, you tend to see big productions using the mirrorless camera or something that is going to match whatever their main A camera is the most, or is small enough that they can fit into tiny little areas. And the S1h doesn't quite fit any of those boxes perfectly, because other than the Vericam LT or the EVA 1, neither of which are used a huge amount for big work on Netflix and feature films and all the rest of it. the S1H isn't a natural choice as a B camera for any of those projects that are shooting on Red or Arri or Canon or Sony Venice. And so the S1H, I think, suffers from that in terms of pro DOPs using it, because the middle professional market, which is the largest percentage by far in our industry, are sort of solo shooters and small production companies, all of which need incredible image quality, incredible stabilization, small camera sizes, you know, everything that's great about the S1H. And the S1H would be a fantastic camera for them. But they are really starting to use autofocus. And I think the autofocus is becoming a huge deal for Panasonic. And it just seems like every single customer conversation I have about Panasonic cameras nowadays, autofocus gets brought up. And so I think that is really hurting them, and the reason why the S1H is underrated, as you say, because the S1H is a fantastic camera. I think it's got a great image. The stabilization is amazing. It's also a really good hybrid camera. The stills are great out of it, and the video is great out of it. It's high resolution. You know, it's just got so many things going to it. It's dual native ISO, so it's really good in low light. Yeah, it's got a lot going to it. The only real weakness is the autofocus and not having variable NDs. Okay, Brian, if I want to fly a Sony A7S Mark III on a gimbal, is the Ronin SC2 good enough, or is it worth it to spring the extra cash for the RS2? I haven't tried the A7S Mark III on either of those. I would think that the SC2 is going to be good enough. Depends a little bit on your lenses. If you're going to go with a lightweight lens, definitely the RC2 should be good. If you want a bit more freedom, the RS2 is going to be able to handle the A7S Mark III with small lenses on it, as well as the A7S Mark III with big lenses on it, and even potentially with the XLR box on top. So I do normally try and push customers towards the RS2, simply because it's a bit more future-proofed. It's a little bit more flexible as a tool, though because of its higher payload, you can do more with it. But if all you're interested in is the A7S Mark III with a lightweight lens, you should be fine with the SC2. Christians, as the UK are moving further with Brexit, are we moving further along with Brexit? As we're moving closer to Brexit, do you expect this will affect your business? Yes, I think it will affect most businesses. It's impossible really to know, because we don't know the ins and outs of anything yet. All the negotiations are still going on with what we're going to look like with the EU. We do rely on international relations very heavily. Obviously, the majority of our customers are in the UK, but obviously we do have customers worldwide. We ship worldwide, but it's more about importing in. You know, lots of manufacturers are based in Europe. Lots of manufacturers are based in Asia, and so obviously any international trade does have a big impact on our currencies. All the rest of it does have a big impact on our business. What we are hoping is that it won't affect customers at all. And so if you're in Europe, I can see PhotoMind is saying that you're in Sweden. You know, I'm hoping that it shouldn't affect anything for you guys in terms of, you know, the fees you have to pay, all the rest of it, how quick the delivery times. Inevitably, as it happens, there will be a period where things are a little bit uncertain and things might take a bit longer to get through customs and all the rest of it. But for the most part, hopefully, after a little bit of that, it should all even itself out. But to be honest, it's crystal ball stuff at the moment. We just don't know. Nobody does. Whether you're incredibly for Brexit or incredibly against Brexit, or just sitting in the middle very confused, nobody really knows what it's all going to look like. So we will have to wait and see. But we are very, very optimistic that it shouldn't affect our customers too much. Okay, for me, based in small Belgium, it's very difficult to test gear, even from big brands, and Photokina was a real ability to discover and test tools without talking about networking and talks. You're in Belgium, in Reno. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a big loss. The one I would look out for you, especially if you're into video as well as photography, is IBC. That's in Amsterdam. So not too difficult for you to travel to from Belgium. And that is pretty much the biggest European trade show for video. you know, you've got Canon there, Sony there, they're all there. It's much more video orientated than stills orientated. Photokina was very stills, but that might be why. Simon, a bit more info on sound bits. Okay, it sounds a little like overly compressed MP3 type sound. I understand, or a low bitrate MP3. Notice it because I'm an audio guy and I'm listening in headphones. Okay, I'll look into that. I know that I set my encoders to 48 kilobits a second. I will check what the actual bitrate is. To be honest, I think streams often sound a little bit compressed like that. But if you were noticing it now and not before, I will go and double check what those settings are, because I may have set them as a lower compressed option than I did before. To be honest, I could probably just push them all to the absolute highest. I'll check after the stream what I've set to. Thank you so much for the feedback. Really, really useful. Jonathan Petts. Hi, Carl. How have you been? Long time no see. It has been a long time, Johnny. It's been a long time since I've seen anyone in the industry in person. For everyone that is curious, Johnny Petts in that chat there is from Red. So he is the technical expert that works for Red in the UK. So any of you have any questions at all from Red about Red cameras, we have somebody from Red in the chat. So that we can start some discussions about Red cameras, because I'm sure lots of people have got questions about the Komodo. That is a very exciting camera right now. Carico, hello from the Caribbean. Hello. Okay, you are moving into live streaming events, but you need excellent quality cameras. Would you recommend the Canon C300 Mark III and the Canon XF705? If yes, why? Definitely. They are fantastic quality cameras. It really depends what sort of live streaming events you're going to be doing. We are using a Canon C300 Mark II right now, which will be replaced with a Mark III as soon as customers stop ordering them. It's been too popular, that camera, and we cannot hold them in stock fast enough. And so I haven't replaced this camera with it because we wanted to prioritize customers rather than ourselves for obvious reasons. You're all far more important than I am. So yes, would I recommend it? Absolutely. It's what I'm using here. That being said, obviously all the other manufacturers do fantastic options as well, and if you need pan, tilt and zoom functionality, you know, PTZ cameras have come a huge way, and there are cameras like Bird Dog Pocket 4Ks, for example, or the high-end Panasonic, I can't remember which one it's called now, is it the UE100? Whatever that highest end Panasonic, effectively their version of the P4K from Bird Dog is, those are stunning, and Sony have a high-end one as well, which is very good. They are stunning PTZs in terms of image quality and the optics on them, and of course you get full pan remote camera functionality, which is very, very useful. So they could be well worth looking at for you. But if you're just looking at operators or unmanned cameras with autofocus like this one is here, yeah, the Canons are going to do a great job for you. Okay, Andre, A7S Mark III. From videos I saw, it looks like it has a very cyan sky tone compared to the FX6, which is lovely and realistic blue to my eyes. Any thoughts on that? I haven't noticed too much of a difference in cyans between the two cameras. Most of the differences I've noticed have been in terms of magenta, which, depending on the videos that you've been watching and how they've been shot, might have been creeping into some of the sky colours. For the most part, I think the FX6 and the A7S III are fairly well matched in terms of their image performance. Yeah, so I think they're fairly good nowadays, both of those cameras. Jack Isaac, you guys are doing a great job. Thank you. And I've offered some excellent streams with interesting guests. Keep it going into 2021. We absolutely will. Thank you. That's very kind. What do you want to see us do in 2021? How can we improve these for you? I think these weekly Q&A streams have been an unexpected success. For me, I thought these would be really sort of a bit of a flop, really. I didn't think anyone would be that interested in them, you know, without something solid to talk about. But, you know, they've been doing very well. Lots of interesting comments, and the feedback has been brilliant. So as long as these are useful for you, we will carry on doing them. But in terms of the normal main flagship streams, you know, the guests, the the topics. If you've got any topics you want us to cover, if you've got any things you'd like us to try, if you've got any suggestions, just let us know, because we're brainstorming ideas for 2021 now. We've got some exciting ideas and very happy to go with things that you guys are all suggesting. Okay, iFilm Flops has come on with an update as to which lenses he wants to use for that narrative film and the C70 versus the FX6. He's looking for recommendations. We prefer a zoom in the range of 18 to 35 in Super 35 so that we can shoot fast without switching lenses. That sounds very much like you're thinking of the Sigmas. If you're looking at 18 to 35 in Super 35 and fast, you're already thinking of the Sigma 18 to 35 f1.8. I imagine there is a cinematic version of that lens which is absolutely fantastic and would be a very good lens for you to choose. If you're thinking of zooms, there's also some fantastic other affordable cinema zooms now. There's the DZO Pictors, which are very good. Got maybe a bit more of a classic vintagey look to them. A few more, well, I guess flaws really as a lens. Things like chromatic aberration and distortion and vignetting, all the things which are a problem with lenses. But apart from chromatic aberration, that's a bit of a problem. But for the most part, I think they've got a lot of character to them, those lenses. If you don't like that route and you prefer a more clean, sterile look, which you can then change in post, there's the Laowa which is a very good all-purpose zoom range lens. But of course, the Sigmas are very good, and they've got an f1.8 aperture, whereas the others aren't. They're f2.8. So the Sigmas, really the drawback of the Sigmas is the zoom range, 18 to 35 and then 50 to 100. It's not a complete zoom range all the way through, whereas the Laowas and DZOs do. Okay, Simon. In broadcast, A7S Mark II is used a lot as a B camera for the FS7, but now the FX6 and A7S III have the same sensor. Which do you see being favoured by directors who work across both TV and digital? Which, in terms of the A7S Mark II and the FS7, or the newer cameras? Or do you mean with the two newer cameras, the FX6 or the A7S Mark III, which do I see being favoured of those two cameras? Let me know. Okay, Jack Isaac, they've been great and have inspired me you to do a weekly stream. Great. What's your weekly stream? We'll check it out. JTR, can you tell me GH5 or the Sony FS5 with an Atomos? God, those are two very different cameras. If you need do you like working with a video camera? Because of FS5 with an Atomos on top of it is a big form factor. Do you like working with that form factor, or do you like working with a mirrorless camera? And I would really decide upon it on those two things, because both cameras are very good with their own strengths and weaknesses. Okay, video camera bloke. With regard to live streams you've been doing solo and with guests, it's really given a personal feel to ProAV. Great, thank you. And doesn't feel very selly. Nahooting good and bad news products. So now more likely to buy from you. That is great to hear, video bloke. That is exactly what we try and do. I mean, obviously, as a dealer, we have to be a little bit salesy. We have to let you know with new products. I do really try and put every product in perspective in the lineup, and that inevitably means talking about its strengths and its weaknesses so that you can understand what the model above it, for example, has going for it and what other competitors' products have going for them. And so you can't just talk about the good. It's meaningless, and it really hurts customers because they'll end up buying the wrong thing. It's important to, I often find when you're trying to decide what the right product is for you, pick it apart, find what's wrong with each product, and then which one of those things that's wrong with it can you live with, and that's the one you should buy. Because there's something wrong with every single product. There's no perfect product, whether that's a gimbal, a light, a camera, a lens. They've all got flaws. And so which one has got the flaws which you can live with in your work? Okay. Hey Carl, I heard that Sony delayed their FX6 deliveries. Any thoughts when FX6 stock is going to reach the UK? That is very true. Sony have sent out some communication saying that the FX6 is a bit delayed, and they're not sure when that next batch is going to hit the UK. We don't know. Everyone is in the same boat though around the world. It's to do with how quickly they can manufacture each part. It is sad, but that is unfortunately the way it's going to go, because it has been such a popular camera, that FX6. They will all get fulfilled, but perhaps not as quickly as they would otherwise been without this delay. I can't tell you how long. I don't know whether it's going to be a week, whether it's going to be a month, whether it's going to be 3 months. I just don't know. What I would say is that the camera is very back ordered. So if you have a pre-order on with us, you know, talk to the sales team, find out your place in the queue, and then we can keep you in touch with how things are going. If you haven't got a pre-order on yet, get one on, because it's only a refundable deposit and it secures your place in the queue. Because if you don't get on that place in the queue, you'll just find that that queue gets longer and longer and longer and longer, and that wait time is just going to push further and further away. Okay, Christina's. Thank you for your clarification on Brexit. I'm not sure I clarified much. Another question. Do you think the Canon XF405 is still worth it to buy for streaming, concerts, conferences and purposes in 2021? Any other options in the same price range? It's absolutely worth it. In fact, it's one of my favorite options out there. I think the Sony Z90 is still very good as well. But the way that the autofocus is controlled in the XF405, I think is brilliant. Any other options in the same price range? We've seen Panasonic's ones, the CX10 and the CX350 come along, which have been very popular options. They give you maybe a bit more functionality in terms of their price, but they lose out on things like the autofocus performance. So it depends what's important to you. But they've got some fantastic features in them. They're all very good cameras. I think the Z90 is the one that's getting a little bit of the oldest from the bunch. I'd say the XF405 is definitely still worth buying. The Z90, I really hope they introduce a new version of that, which has Sony's new autofocus in it, and a bit more control options in that camera, and a bit more maybe of improved image quality tweaks. But at the end of the day, the Z90 is still a fantastic camera as it is right now. Okay, Simon, the two new... Simon's come back clarifying about that FX6 versus A7S Mark III. He meant the two newer cameras, but so for people in broadcast choosing between the FX6 and the A7S Mark III, which do we see directors favouring in the same way many bought the A7S Mark II to pair with the FS7 over the last few years? Massively so. I think the FX9 has been hugely popular. We can't rule out the FX9 from that equation. And I think because what has driven the FS7 to be so popular in the UK production industry is producers, not camera operators. The FS7 is an easy camera to book. It's an easy, safe option for a producer that doesn't know the first thing about cameras to just go, they've got an FS7? Yeah, fine. We'll book them. To an extent where we're seeing it right now, where it's getting asked for over FX9s, just because they don't know about the FX9. They know about the FS7. And so the FX9 is a simple transition across. People are almost calling it the version 3 of the replacement for the FS7, so that producers will just go, okay. Whereas the FX6 and the A7S Mark III are a very different style of camera. You know, producers, people that don't know about cameras, will know that that's a different camera. And you can explain till you're blue in the face about how the image quality is so much better than the FS7, all the rest of it, all of its strengths and weaknesses. And we would all agree with you, but producers that don't know about cameras are just going to want to go with what's safe. And I think for them, the FX9 is going to be what's safe, not the FX6. In time, that might change. I think it will change to be the FX6 rather than the A7S Mark III, simply because of the form factor. But I think the A7S Mark III is going to get more and more widely used in professional broadcast work, because there's no reason technically for it not to be. I don't think it'll be used much as an A camera, but as a B camera, it will be used more and more in broadcast work. Now, in areas where brands are maybe a little bit less fussy about which camera it is. So, for example, in the commercial work where... There's sort of two types of commercial works. There's commercial work where brands really care about quality, so they want the best camera. So they will get a Red for high resolutions, or they'll get an Arri or whatever. There's then ones which just go for the creative. And so they don't really care what tool you make it. I'm hiring you as a director because I like your work and I like your style. That sort of commercial work, and that's brand documentaries as well as TV commercials and things like that, aren't really going to mind which camera it's shot on. as long as it meets A, B, and C requirements. And the A7S Mark III is going to tick those boxes. And so I think it will be a very popular choice for that kind of work, because moving around with a small little camera like that, it just lets you be so creative. So I think both will do very well in the industry. Okay, Johnny Boy. Any ideas on budget-friendly live streaming options like the LiveView Solo or Teradek? Is there something else out there I'm not aware about? I want to be able to put a logo over the camera feed. So LiveView Solos or, well, Teradek make a bunch of products. I'm assuming you mean the Teradek versions of the LiveView Solo, which are encoders which have got bonding in them so that you can stream wherever you are in the world. So right now, you know, in this sort of live streaming setup of what I'm doing, I don't need a Teradek and I don't need a LiveView Solo. There's plenty of very affordable options which will do this better than those products, you know. More switching functionality, more graphics functionality. You know, you can have a PC with a Wirecast setup. You can have a TriCaster like I'm using here. You can have a A10 Mini Pro, you know, something like that. That's just hardware. Where you want to move towards something like a LiveView Solo or a Teradek is when you want to take this out of the studio. You want to be able to do this from whatever job you walk into, you know, whatever corporate building you go to, or that field in the middle of nowhere. When you need to be able to use a 3G or a 4G SIM in it, that's when you should go with a Teradek or a LiveView Solo. Both are great options. Personally, I think I prefer the LiveView Solo. That might just be because I've got a bit more experience with it. I also find it a little bit easier to use. But I mean, the Teradeks are fantastic as well. The Teradek's bonding system is more expensive though. Their cloud bonding software, because you are going to want to use that if you're in that sort of environment, because what bonding lets you do is it lets you stitch together multiple connection methods to make one even better connection method that's more reliable, and you can use the bandwidth of each of those other ones. So that's definitely worth doing, and that subscription service for LiveView Solo is cheaper than Teradek's, which might be another reason I lean towards LiveView. Is there something else out there you're not aware about? The only one I would maybe suggest is a little tiny box we've started selling a decent amount of, and it's been quite popular, and I haven't had a good play with this yet. It's got the worst name in the world. I really hate the name. The product seems to be really good. This is the YOLO Live YOLO box. Let me know if anyone out there likes that name. I hate it. But this is, picture this as a monitor. So a bit like an Atomos Shogun 7 or something like that. But so it's got switching built into it and multiple inputs, like a A10 Mini, but on a touchscreen device. And it's also got bonding and encoding, all the rest of it built into it. I think it's got bonding. Might be wrong that it's got bonding, but it's definitely got 3G connections, you know, single point connections built into it. If you're looking for you only live stream once YOLO video, the bloke says, yeah, that's why I don't like the name. But this is actually a really good option. It's surprisingly well built. It's really quite well put together. And if all you want to do is whack a logo on the top of it and cut between different options and encode out to wherever you are with just one little box, this is going to be a fantastic option for you. So yes, there might be something you're missing, and that's that. Will we ever see ProAV RAW in DaVinci Resolve, says Andreas. I really hope so. I've spoken about this lots of times. I really hope that they will. I think it really depends on how much we see professional work taking on ProAV RAW. You know, if it was, as soon as we start seeing big budget productions shot in ProAV RAW, that's going to happen. I really hope so. I do think Blackmagic need to support all projects. The other thing that will massively help that is if more brands other than just Atomos are supporting it, because at the moment it's really only Atomos that are using ProAV RAW. And so the more it's seen as Apple's thing rather than Atomos's thing, the more likely Blackmagic are to put it in, I imagine. But as soon as it becomes industry standard, they will have to. Andreas wants a YOLO camera. Yep. Johnny loves the name, clearly. Let's There's a lot of love out there for the YOLO name. Okay. Camille says, do we know when we can buy the Aperture LS60D or the 60X? No, they haven't really announced when that's going to be shipping. I can't wait for that to shipping. I've still got Aperture's website up. Let me show you what that is that we're talking about. So, products by family. Whoops. This one. This is the smallest little Aperture version, which is... Oh, that website's a bit slow to load, isn't it? There we go. Oh, that's why it's slow to load. It's fancy with moving assets. I think these look brilliant. I love little Fresnel fixtures. Perfect for backlights. Perfect for little splashes of colour on the background, like this light that's behind me there. You know, little lights like these are so useful. It's sort of Aperture's version of like the classic dado light and things like that. I can't wait for these, but no, we don't know. Like they say here on their website, they just say coming soon with no more information than that. And that's the same thing that they tell us. We've got no more information than that, I'm afraid. Right, we're nearing the end of our time. Thank you so much for all of the questions. Johnny says, wow, thank you so much for the recommendation. I will look into that terribly named product. It is definitely worth looking into. Don't let the name Yellow Box put you off. It is actually quite a good little product. Okay, Adam says, do you think the Z280 is worth the price tag over the Z190? Yes, I think the Z280 is a significantly better camera than the Z190. I think both cameras are only really worth going for if you like the small sensor look and the way that that works. If you want a deeper depth field, you know, if you're in the business of capturing what's in front of you, not crafting what's in front of you, if that makes sense, then I think the Z280 is the clear winner there and one of the best cameras for that kind of work on the market. If you want a more cinematic image quality, there are better choices with a larger sensor on the market than the Z280, and the Z190 definitely not for that sort of work. But yes, from the two cameras, I would take the Z280 every single day of the week, mainly because of image quality. Okay, Simon, thank you. You love these streams. Thank you. I've used a FS7 and an FX9 on terrestrial broadcast productions in the last 2 months alone. Brilliant. Great to hear that you're working in the last couple of months, because I think a lot of people are in the same boat. They're starting to get things going again in terms of more broadcast work. Prevailing wisdom in TV is a tricky thing. Yes, tell me about it. Okay, Paul M Films, looking for a small, soft LED panel that is quick and easy to use. Do we still recommend the Swit E60? Yes, we still recommend the Swit E60. I think it is a fantastic light. If all you want is a simple, stick it on a light stand, put a battery on the back of it, turn the thing on, Swit E60 is a fantastic light. It's very small, very light, easy to travel with. You know, it's very robust and sturdy, and it's got a good brightness level for a soft light. And it's good image quality, good color performance. So what is there to go wrong really with it? Doesn't have all the fancy things, doesn't have the app control, doesn't have the RGB, but just as simple, does the job, stick it on a light stand and go, you know, like you say, quick and easy to use. I think this E60 is one of the best options on the market. Zach, is there an adapter available or in development that would allow you to mount L-mount lenses on Sony's E-mount? Would love to use a Leica 24-90 on an FX6 or an A7. That would be lovely. No, I don't think that's possible, because L-mount and E-mount are both very, very small little flange distances. I don't know off the top of my head the exact flange distances, but I would strongly bet that it's within a couple of millimeters. And that would mean that, say, E-mount has a flange distance of 14 millimeters and L-mount has one of 16 millimeters, for example. I don't think those are the exact numbers, they're just plucked from thin air. If that is the difference, that means that a adapter has to fit within 2 millimeters of space, and I mean, obviously that's physically impossible. And so even if the L-mount does have a longer flange distance than the E-mount, it won't be significantly longer, and so no, I very much doubt that will ever physically be possible. And that's a sad note to end it on, because I would also love to use lenses like the Leica lenses on E-mount systems. Okay, here we go. Is there something better than the Lupo Super Panel 30x30 in the same price range for studio use? No, the super panels are very, very specific lights. They are all about the Fresnel that's on the front of them. It's not a Fresnel, but it's a panel of bare-face LEDs which have got little, almost like Fresnel style focusing beams in front of each LED chip, and that makes them incredibly bright. It makes them have a narrower beam angle, which is why they're incredibly bright. It means that the Lupo Super Panel is quite good for studio use because you can have it a little bit further away and it doesn't flood over the entire thing that you're shooting. And so there isn't really anything else on the market that does that. If you want to move towards more traditional Fresnel things, there's lots of options. And if you want to move towards wider beam angle soft lights, there's lots of options. But in terms of that niche that has the lens on a narrower beam angle that's mediumly wide with a strong output, no, Lupo Super Panels are still really the only option for you. Okay, hello Carl, last question. When is the Marrow Edge coming to the UK? That's the Kinefinity Marrow Edge. We are really hoping it will be coming in January, is the latest update. So we're hoping that a couple of pre-production models will be making their rounds in January, with them actually starting to ship late January. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, if that gets pushed back again. We'll have to see. Kinefinity is such a small company, remember. But they do seem to be on track from what they're telling us to hit that target of January now. It was November, then it was December, now it's January. So it just keep getting pushed back a little bit. Hence why I wouldn't be surprised if it goes back. But I would rather they push it back 1 or 2 months more and wait for it to be ready than release it straight away. With flaws, because I think that has a lot of potential, that camera. I think it's a great design. If they get the image quality right and if they get it reliable, that will be a fantastic camera. Andreas signs off by saying YOLO to everyone until next time. Great. What a way to sign off. Okay, and on that note, thank you very much for everyone to watching. Some great questions coming through there in the end. Thank you so much for all of that. I think this is going to be our last stream and potentially even our last bit of YouTube content before Christmas. That's not set in stone yet. We might squeeze something else out, but it could well be that this is our last thing. So just in case it is, thank you all so much for all of your support over this incredibly strange year for everyone. Thank you for the support on these live streams. We started these live streams, in March and April of this year. So 2020 has really been a year of experimentation for us on the channel. And so I think the people watching these are our sort of core audience of people that are watching those live streams. And so it's you guys that have been making those live streams so successful, rather than just tuning in for the really big ones and the exciting product launches. So thank you so much for watching these streams, for leaving questions and comments. And I really do hope that these have been useful for you, both these regular weekly live streams and the bigger content that we've done, the stuff with guests, the stuff with live product launches. Happy Christmas to everyone out there, and let's hope that 2021 is a significantly better year than 2020 has been. Happy December, happy Christmas. Thank you for watching.